What a week, church. Let me first say thank you to all of you that have reached out with kind words and words of encouragement to offer comfort to my family in our time of grief. One of God's greatest blessings is our family of faith that walks with us through life's struggles and comforts us when we mourn, that holds us up as we walk through the valleys, and that rejoice with us on the mountaintops. I do look forward to being back home with you, my North Bay family. Since I'm not at home, our usual Wednesday night broadcast was not possible, but I did think it appropriate to share with you just a few words of encouragement or a few words of promise from the scripture that I've really come to appreciate over the last couple of days. My brother Kevin, his favorite scripture was Hebrews chapter 12, the first couple of verses. This is what it reads. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders us, and the sin that so easily entangles us, and let us run with endurance the race set out before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Surrounded by witnesses, the Hebrew writer writes. In the previous chapter, he spoke of many men and women of faith who lived their life by their faith in God. In chapter 11, towards the end, he writes, I do not have time to tell about Gideon or Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, who shut the mouth of lions, quenched the fury of flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. Women received back their dead, raised to life again. Others were tortured and refused to be released so that they might gain a better resurrection. Some faced jeers and flogging, while still others were chained and put in prison. They were stoned, and they were sawn in two. They were put to death by the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, destitute and persecuted and mistreated. The world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and mountains and caves and holes in the ground. These were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised. God had planned something better for us, so that only together with us would they be made perfect. Some of these great heroes of faith we know by name, but many are mentioned simply by the evidence of their faith. The evidence of a life lived in complete surrender to God the Father, regardless of the struggles or the successes that they faced in this world. Kevin was one who, like these, lived in complete faith in the Father, and he now joins these heroes in the cloud of witnesses. You too have people that have lived and died faithfully in the Lord, adding to this cloud of witnesses. What a blessing to have known and lived with such faithful people. How about us? When our day comes, will others be able to say of us, the world was not worthy? How rich, how deep is your faith? The writer writes, lay aside every weight, cast off every weight. We seem to thrive on making things harder than they have to be sometimes, don't we? Throw aside, the writer says, get rid of everything. And sin is obviously the most heavy of, sin is the most obvious weight that he talks about, but it's certainly not the only weight. Question and doubt, I think, is often the greatest weight that we carry. And often we carry it without even realizing it, I think. Earlier in the chapter, the writer writes, faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. And doubt is the opposite of that. In his last days, with a few whispered words, Kevin blessed us with wisdom that reminds us to throw off the weight of doubt and just trust in the Father no matter what. When asked what message he wanted conveyed at his memorial service, he responded, "Don't worry about the reason, just have faith." Don't worry about the reason, just have faith. Knowing that we would be inclined to ask why, Kevin reminded us that the why doesn't matter when we believe in Jesus Christ as the Son of God. What's slowing you down or holding you back in your race to the Father? Is it sin, behavior that is contrary to the life and teaching of Jesus Christ? Is it doubt, fear, disbelief? Whatever it is, get rid of it today and be free. Run free. Pick up the pace. Run with endurance, he says. The most difficult thing I've experienced in running, or anything else for that matter, is the ability to keep going when it begins to hurt. You know, that feeling where your legs start hurting and your breathing gets harder and your lungs even begin to burn just a little bit. Everything about that feeling says, stop, quit, don't go any further. You've gone far enough. But what I have always found amazing is that if you endure, if you push through the pain, you experience a certain peace on the other side of that pain. You're running and it stops hurting, and your breathing slows down, and you can actually carry on a conversation as you run. There's a peace that's found on the other side of that pain. And this is true of our faith journey as well. This broken world is full of trial and pain. As Peter writes, Satan prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Living faithfully in a faithless world is difficult. When trial comes, we endure. When pain is felt, we endure. Because on the other side is a peace that passes all understanding. How do we endure? By fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of our faith. We sing a song often that goes like this: He came from heaven to earth to show the way. From the earth to the cross, my debt to pay. From the cross to the grave, and from the grave to the sky. The Hebrew writer would add to that, where he now sits at the right hand of God. How do we endure? By focusing on Jesus, who sits at the right hand of God. He taught us how to surrender in obedience to the will of God out of love rather than out of obligation to a law. One last tribute to my brother Kevin. He lived like those spoken of in Hebrews 11 and 12. He ran with perseverance the race marked out for him, with his eyes focused on Jesus Christ. And because he did, he now rests with God, and his family finds peace in our sorrow. May we, like Kevin and all the others who make up the cloud of witnesses, run our race with perseverance and our eyes focused on Jesus Christ.